to Freshly Served, the healthy vegan cooking show. I'm Heather, and tonight I'm making a bean casserole dish that we're going to bake in the oven, which is always a lovely thing to have in the winter. Something really nice and filling and warm out of the oven. What I've done first is cook the beans that I'm going to use, and I've chosen to use pinto beans tonight, which are a medium-sized bean. They're kind of a beige color, so they're not a white bean, but they're not a dark bean. They're not quite red, but anyway, there you go. Any type of bean really will work well in this recipe. I've chosen pinto because they absorb really nicely the flavors from around them. And what I'm going to use for flavoring in this are some really nice Italian French style herbs. They're pretty interchangeable. Anyway, so in a bean dish, what we're going to do is minimize the fat and minimize the starchy carbohydrate content, because if we have either one of those, it's going to slow digestion down, and proteins need to be digested very quickly. So what I'm using for vegetables are some peppers and some tomatoes. Neither one of them are a starchy kind of vegetable, and I'm going to minimize my use of fat by just using a little bit of olive oil. So we're going to start by sauteing the onion and the garlic. So I'm going to get my pot heated up on the back here, and I'm using one of my glass soup pots because what I'm going to do is saute the onions and the garlic first, and then I'm going to put a lid on, add the rest of it, and put it in the oven. So this pot works really well on the stove, but also in the oven. Alright, so my onions are cooking away back here, and they've just started to get translucent, where they're soft looking, but you can't see through them. So next I'm going to crunch my garlic in here. And garlic will cook fairly quickly. So while the onions were cooking, I also started chopping up my peppers, which are going to go in after the garlic. Onions and garlic are looking good back here. It's time to add the peppers, and I'm also going to get the oven going to about 350. So I've got red and yellow peppers, because I'm just that lucky. What I'm going to do is get the red peppers in first, let them have a little go on the heat, and then I'll add the yellow peppers after. This way the flavor of each of the peppers will come out, as opposed to just kind of blending together. And because this is a nice baked stew, I'm just making big chunks of pepper here. Alright, so you just want to have each pepper be softened by the heat slightly before you add the next. And the next thing I'm going to add are the tomatoes. And I am indeed using canned tomatoes today. Why? I do not know. In the winter, I'm often using canned tomatoes because it's very difficult to find fresh ones that are local. And if I find canned ones that are from somewhere relatively close, I think that that's probably better than buying fresh tomatoes that come in from Mexico, both for environmental reasons and also because of the nutrients. Because if I'm buying tomatoes that come from Mexico, they aren't going to have very many nutrients in them because they're going to have been picked before they're ripe. That's why it's always best to buy local whenever you can, and I would rather buy canned tomatoes from like Oregon than fresh tomatoes from Mexico. Okay, once you get the tomatoes in there, you really don't need to give it any time. What I'm going to do is add the beans right into the pot. Things are getting a little tight here, but I think we're going to be good. Now these beans have been fully cooked without any salt. And that's crucial because the cooking of the protein really only happens before you add the salt. If you add salt while they're cooking, they're not going to break down properly, they're not going to get soft, you're not going to be able to digest them very well, you're going to get gas, it's not going to be pretty. So, like I say, cook them first, then add them to the dish and add salt. And this can come right off the heat now. I'm going to take it off the burner. My pot's getting pretty full, so I felt like I was going to spill, and I don't like spilling on the burner because then it's very difficult to clean. But if I do it here on the cutting board and I spill, no worries. All right, so salt gets added now. Beans are fully cooked. Vegetables are ready to go in for their cooking. I'm gonna add the seasoning, which is gonna be a few grinds of black pepper, some marjoram, and give it a nice squeeze between your fingers to release the flavor, since I'm using dried. I've got some oregano. And this was picked from our garden and then I dried it. So I tried to crush that one up a little bit because it's a little bit chunky. And then I also have some thyme, again from our garden, that I dried at home. So a little bit chunky. There we go. So give this a nice stir through. And then as soon as the oven is heated up, we can pop this in there with the lid on. So our stew's had about 20 minutes in the oven. And let's take a peek. I think things are starting to soften up really nicely here. You can leave this in longer if you like, if you want things to get really soft, or right now, looks like the peppers are just cooked, which is how I want it. So, put some in a bowl here. And then what I'm going to do is top this with a bunch of parsley to get some greens in there. If you like, you can just stir it through the stew, or you can just put it on top. I might give it a little bit of a poke in there just to get it nice and soft. So there you go, a very easy, filling, healthy, and delicious stew for you for the evening.